What's up, everyone?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to our November 20th Daily Gaming News Show. I am Kaisa.
I am Marrone, and welcome to the Daily Gaming News channel here on Twitch as we take an hour out of the day to talk about everything going on in the gaming industry.
What is up, everyone? What is up, early gang? What is
Early
up, everyone
gang.
who came to tune into our show? What is up, Marrone?
Not much. Busy, as always, getting some stuff done. Happy that the weather's not too bad today. It's been weird. Like, it's been like hot and then cold and then cold and then somewhat hot, and needs to figure itself out, I think. What about you?
Right? Good. I went for a run and I wore my mask the whole time, and it wasn't until I came back that I took it off for a second before coming back home, and I was like, wow, the air smells so fresh, and I didn't smell any of that this whole time.
So funny. It's like masks getting in the way of us being able to breathe in that fresh air while keeping us safe at the same time. It's just the temporary amount of headache we got to currently deal with.
Totally. But to get into some of the topics we're covering today, Star Wars Squadrons is getting B-Wings and TIE Defenders in December.
We're also going to talk about how God Mode has been activated as there are gamers bringing Jesus to Twitch.
And I saw some of you have actually joined that Discord, so we're going to read some of those screenshots that you shared with us. We're also going to get into how Nintendo has asked brands to keep politics out of Animal Crossing, which I find hilarious because there was so much press around, like Joe Biden's Animal Crossing Island, and it's only now that Nintendo's like, actually, we did not like that. That's
so funny. It was delayed for purposes that we'll talk about. So also we're going to talk about how Twitch has banned Félix XQC Lengyel, I think that's how you say his name, I don't know, for cheating at Twitch rivals.
PlayStation CEO teases a potential PS5 Game Pass service.
And then, of course, yesterday with the big reveal behind Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay in that Night City Wire is out of games radar. Somebody got to spend 16 hours with Cyberpunk 2077, and they said they never wanted to leave Night City.
And, of course, what's in the mug?
What is in our mugs today?
Throw up your guesses in the chat. We would love to see them. So getting started with our first topic, Star Wars Squadrons is getting B-Wings and TIE Defenders in December.
So this is a huge surprise for a lot of individuals that remember them saying there was going to be no updates for Squadrons because custom matches and a new map are incoming. And it will be getting a pleasant helping of post-launch content after all, even though they had said that they weren't going to do that. And that will drop right here at the end of November and into December, introducing things such as B-Wings and TIE Defenders into the multiplayer game.
We've seen EA deviating from its no post-launch content plans once already, and of course, in the form of Mandalorian-themed cosmetics to celebrate the TV show's second season. EA's next editions, however, will be significantly meatier, beginning with a new update next Wednesday, November 25th.
And this one starts by reworking Squadrons' single-player Faux Star Haven map for multiplayer skirmishes, and it will be available in fleet battles and dogfight modes. It's set in a remote, lawless area of space under the light of the Twin Stars. This map has been updated from its story mode counterpart to provide a new experience that should fit well with the other 6 maps. Its action plays out across both crowded dockyards and open space.
EA is also introducing 4 new ship components as part of its November update, granting fighters and bombers access to the Boost Extension Kit, which provides a rechargeable full boost, while interceptors and fighters get the new Ion rockets, set to be useful against capital ships and flagships. These move at half the speed of standard rockets, but can be used at the same time as other components.
Bombers and fighters get the prototype-piercing torpedoes, which do less damage than others of their class, but can puncture capital ship and flagship shields. And the U-Wing and TIE Reaper will gain access to the anti-material rocket turret. Though this turret doesn't target enemy starfighters, it's very well poised to take on flagship subsystems, capital ships, and even turrets and other deployables from enemy support ships.
It's arguably the December update, described as a nice final thank you gift for the holidays that'll draw the most crowds. However, with its introduction of one new starfighter each for the New Republic and Galactic Empire, B-Wings and TIE Defenders.
Says that EA says this, that these two starfighters are as powerful as they are iconic, though understandably balanced out for the purposes of the game. The B-Wing will be categorized as a bomber-class starfighter, and the TIE Defender will be a fighter, each being able to use the components relevant to their factions and class, but they'll also come with their own unique aspects in line with what you'd expect from them, such as the B-Wing with its own gyro cockpit and swiveling wings, and the TIE Defender with its shields.
Finally, December's update will introduce 2 team custom matches and a custom match browser, enabling 1 to 5 players per side to battle it out across Squadron's 7 maps in dogfight and fleet battles modes. EA notes players can fiddle with a variety of restrictions and modifiers, adjusting everything from hull, shield, damage values to capital ship health.
I'm really curious to see what happens with those custom matches. I think this is really exciting. You give the players the chance to make the modifications on their own and introduce elements of the multiplayer that aren't currently there with their own restrictions.
Totally. How needed would you say these updates are since you have played Squadrons? Do you think they need to add a lot more to the game? Do you think they need to add a lot more content? Do you think this is going to help, spur some more hype and engagement with this game?
Yeah, I was a firm believer after playing the single player and playing multiplayer and having a great time that their choice of not doing post-launch updates and content was like a nail in the coffin for this title. And truly, this is one of the stronger games to come out this year and fresh experience multiplayer-wise that I haven't seen in a long time. And to not continue to fuel it was odd to me because it hit so well.
Right? I thought it was kind of a strange decision. I thought it was maybe cool. We haven't seen a game kind of launch in its entirety all at once. This is the full package in quite a while. But then they quickly decided that they were going to stray from that and add, like a Baby Yoda bobblehead. And there's going to be this update now coming in December, which I think is quite interesting that... Yeah. I don't think they need to stick to their promise of, not adding extra content or updates, but I just find it kind of strange, or maybe they don't really know what they want to do with this game, or maybe if it wasn't a hit, then that was their excuse to kind of abandon ship, versus since it seems successful, they're adding more updates.
Right.
I don't really know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to believe that the backlash to them saying they weren't going to do DLC for this game is what's causing them to go, well, let's see what happens when we drop this content. Let's see if people come back more, because I'm sure player base dropped off, where it's like, I'm basically getting the same experience over and over, and I don't really have a desire to push towards unlocking more content because what you unlock in your ship just comes from playing the game. But there could be that draw now where, if enough people flood back in with this new content that they go, we were wrong. We should be putting more content out for this game, and we are going to start doing that.
Right. I kind of wish they did a little bit more marketing behind this game because, it seems like they have the budget for it. But I know Squadrons came out and it seemed really exciting, and I haven't really seen people talk about it, or I haven't really seen a lot of articles, really hyping up Squadrons or, looping back around to it. Just because, the initial launch, happened doesn't mean that, that's the end of marketing. I would love to see, even more kind of maybe sponsored streams, or maybe, people streaming in, as I already mentioned, in a whole like Star Wars getup or something with this game, or maybe would be like a fun Twitch Rivals tournament. I think that would be kind of cool content. Like, you don't even have to be good at this game, but it would be super cool to see like big streamers, play Squadrons against each other, or like do these dogfights against each other in this game. I think there's a lot of potential for great content here, and I don't know why they're not jumping on those opportunities.
I think there's a game that they could model this after that was really strong, which was whatchamacallit? PlanetSide. PlanetSide had this wonderful, like, consistent war that was going on, and that fed into the desire to jump in and play it more often because you were like, well, I'm on the blue side or the purple side or the red side, right? But in this, you could do the Empire versus, the Rebels, and you could favor like, well, more Rebellion players have killed this many capital ships, so a reward will be unleashed for the rebels this time.
Right.
So each, segment of time or season, so to speak, they pick what side they want to join, and then they can move back and forth on that. I think stuff like that would be great.
I think that would be cool, and that sounds like a better version of Destiny 2's kind of model. It was like the hunters. I forgot what the categories were, but you said like one of them was dominant every single time. Versus
the hunters, the titans, and the warlocks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like they could implement that way better in Squadron.
Totally, and the lore feeds it. This is Star Wars. There's no lack of storytelling here that you could even do the slightest of, additional story to surround the online experience, and they'd feed off of it. They would just be all in to that aspect of like, I'm just giving an example, like say you're an empire and in that season or that segment of time you won your reward, and then you take like Vader addressing everyone, for their work out in the battlefield, and we're going to be sending more supplies to you, like things like that they could do. Right. And it would just be eaten up. Same on the rebellion side, if you had, Princess Leia's character addressing or things like that could be just a easy addition. And especially it's Disney. I mean,
right.
It's not like they don't have the budget for it. So no. I really think the community would grow very fast if they saw that's what was happening here.
I think so too. I think that would be a great way to, loop in more people. I know even diehard Star Wars fans that like everything Star Wars haven't even played Squadrons for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe Squadrons is trying to, appeal to maybe not the diehard fans, but I don't know why that would maybe keep diehard fans from joining it. I don't know if it seems too watered down because there is really a lot of lore tied into it. I think tying in lore, even creating more lore, for this game would bring in old fans and also new ones.
That's the thing too, is we don't really have. There isn't really like a Star Wars game that sits in the space online that allows that type of that type of storytelling to not just be rooted in the game, but also to kind of like bleed over into the real world, right? When you were kind of talking about that element of like you have these big streamers like streaming against each other, they could make those decisions in the custom matches earlier. Well, like we're going to be Empire, us and these guys are going to be on the Empire side of things, and us and these guys are going to be on the Rebellion side of things, and we're going to maybe shape our streams to kind of fit that. And there's a lot that could be done, and I think should be done. It makes me wonder something. Maybe with how bad Battlefront 2 started off and finished strongly, I wonder if they're trying to go the reverse, where they're trying to say, let's start off super hesitant to do the things that maybe we want to do and see how bad the community wants to be fed that, live service experience. And then we'll start to give it to them if they request it, versus we make that and set that as the demand starting out.
Right, maybe that's the play. It's not like, if we build it, they will come. Like they are trying to gauge, how much, how big of a game this could be. I just wish they invested a little bit more or have a little, higher expectations of like, yes, people want to play this game, but they're not going to want to play this game if we don't even look like we want to support this game on our end. Right,
because that's, man, you just said that. When you don't look like you want to support the game,
right?
Anthem, as an example, makes people just disappear. They're like, well, why would I play your game if you yourself aren't trying to make it grow? You have to believe in it just as much as we want to consume it. You have to be excited about delivering as we are excited about receiving.
That's kind of how I feel about Squadrons. I'm like, okay, so they don't want to support this game, so I guess there's going to be no updates. So why would I play it now versus in a year? It's going to be the same thing. Like, what? That's how I feel about Squadrons. I'm like, it seems really cool.
Yeah.
But if there's not going to be a backing or support or a lot of, like a big community around it, like, why would I really join?
Yep, that is a wonderful point, and I've got my fingers crossed with this update. This is that first sign at them going back on what they said in the beginning. There would be what you get is what you get. There's no post-launch content. and then the Baby Yoda bobblehead doll, and then it's like, oh, well, we got 2 ships coming and a new map. So it's like, wait a second. Okay. Let's see where this goes. Because it could be a wonderful experience, especially for someone like me who hasn't played it in a while. Kind of because I was like, well, I got the full experience, and I didn't want to grind the game that had nothing else to offer other than cosmetic changes.
Right.
So if there is this other area of like, well, you start to get new ships, and you do start to get more maps, and then it's like, oh, now I'm more excited about jumping in and not seeing the same map and the same ships every time. I mean, I'll come back and start playing it. I miss it, but I'm also like, but I've gotten everything it has to offer.
I know, right? I really hope they add more support, or I hope they double down on this game. It seems like this is what they're ramping up for the holiday season, but I don't think it's a big enough splash, versus our next topic, which is all about community. It
really is. And this one is an interesting one. Can be a sensitive topic for others, of course. But there is a situation here when we address this that I have a personal commentary on that I think is respectful to both sides. But yes, it is the fact that there are Christian evangelists that use streaming platforms to spread the gospel while playing games like Fortnite.
To start off, are you religious, Marrone?
I have a spiritual belief system. I was raised with a Christian Protestant perspective. I don't share a lot of the details that shape how these people talk about the subject matter, like I might have in my past, which is why as I was reading some of this article, I was like, oh, okay.
I guess just to preface everyone before I talk about this, religious topic, I was raised Catholic. I don't currently practice. I just kind of do, like Christmas and Easter just for the spirit of it. But I'm pretty secular. I don't go to church or anything like that. Just before we dive into some of these people who do all those things. So starting off with Katie Dexter, who this article starts off talking about, she is a different kind of evangelist. She says the gaming community is definitely a community that's got some lost people that need Christ.
So millions of people log on to Twitch every month to broadcast live video. Most of them streaming games like League of Legends and Rocket League, Fortnite, Call of Duty, but some use it to organize sporting events or political discussions. But there is a small and growing community of creators that are using it to reach gamers on behalf of Jesus Christ. And Dexter is the chief operating officer of something called GMA, which is known as God Mode Activated. And it's a group dedicated to activating gamers in faith.
Initially founded in 2018, GMA's stated goal is to create a community for both believers and non-believers to experience Christianity in the context of gaming. Dexter, also known by her Twitch handle Catastrophic, described the ministry's approach to 1-0 as a network of GMA affiliates, each of whom is offered free reign to stream whatever games they like, as long as they use their Twitch platform to share Christian content and encourage their audiences to join the GMA Discord server. Sometimes affiliates hold Bible studies on their streams. In other instances, gamers gather impromptu on the GMA Discord server to chat about their personal lives while playing games together.
So there are pastors and evangelicals, some of them genuine gamers themselves, that are taking to the video game streaming platform because it represents a new mission field for approaching people with the gospel. It's all well suited to fellowshipping, which is a Christian term for hanging out, with Fortniters and Fall Guys streamers alike. And there are a lot of people hanging out because as in 2019, it was reported that there's an estimated 2.5 billion gamers worldwide spend around 6 hours a week playing games. And COVID-19 has significantly increased that number. And so to these Christians looking to do this evangelizing online, that the degree in lifestyle dedication makes Twitch the perfect platform to approach what's known as an unreached people group, a community with no churches or missionaries serving them.
The emergence of this trend was unexpected. So Kevin Shute, a PhD professor of media and communications at Trinity Western University, who wrote Of Games and God, a Christian exploration of video games, tells 1-0 that mainstream gaming culture is not a particularly religion-friendly place. Gaming culture is all about play. Churches are cultures of the book, of the Bible. Churches are about authority and systems and organization. Gaming, less so.
Okay, so now platforms like Twitch, which allow these individuals to speak directly with gamers and are helping bridge the communication gap. Some GMA affiliates, for example, use their streams as opportunities to preach directly to viewers. There's an individual, Dustin Phillips, who is a blonde-haired, bearded children's pastor in Texas who serves as GMA's CEO on Twitch, and he goes by the handle Pastor Dustin and is known as the Demon Slaying Pastor. That's great. He preaches the gospel to his 1,400 followers while streaming games like Doom and Pokemon. While sharing the gospel as one of the games of GMA, Phillips tells 10 it strives to create a safe space for gamers of all affiliations to gather.
Phillips is a member of Assembly of God, a conservative denomination with an emphasis on Pentecostal beliefs, like speaking in tongues and baptizing in the Holy Spirit. But GMA affiliates represent many denominations. Despite the differences in theology, Phillips has found that GMA appeals to all sorts of Christians. That appeal has built them a community of thousands, with several people streaming and playing games almost every day. The pastor says, we have people with a wide variety of beliefs, traditions, interpretations, which is actually one of my favorite things about GMA.
So several other licensed preachers and amateur ministers present themselves as Christian role models on Twitch. One has even gone as far as to create a Twitch-based church called the Reverend Matthew Souza, who has a short hair, wide smile, and enthusiastic energy, and he started streaming as a pastor in 2014 and eventually used his platform of 18,000 followers to found God Squad Church, a ministry that aims to connect gamers to God by meeting them where they are. And the church hosts several online worship services over the weekend and a yearly online convention, game-themed sermon, and physical church site in Virginia that offers a chance to gather in person.
Souza, like GMA, takes an approachable and communitarian approach to faith on Twitch, which may account for their wide appeal. Shu notes that these organizations don't major on the hot button issues that tend to divide evangelical Christians from the secular public. Rather, they offer key doctrines explaining who God and Jesus are, defining them with a very minimalistic message meant to be as broadly inclusive as possible. This way, they do not create fodder for criticism from people who are less open to Christian ideas.
And others, however, go with the more fundamentalist methodology to reach gamers. There's an individual, Joseph Henning, who is known as Dr. Witnesser on Twitch, typically logs on to Fortnite in the mornings wearing a black button-down, an orange tie, and his headphones, compared Souza and Dustin, who dress more casually in order to stream as they are. Hennig offers the appearance of a far more serious streamer, and he's amassed over 119,000 followers.
When Hennig began streaming in 2018, he focused on gameplay and crowd interactions, not personal faith. But after some time, he says, he realized that spending countless hours playing a game was not aligned with good Christian discipline, so he stopped streaming to focus on his religious studies. Hennig is a Seventh-day Adventist, a denomination that holds conservative views of science, creation, and sexuality.
And during that break from streaming, Hennig still watched Twitch streams and wondered how they could be used to evangelize. Doing so through chat would be difficult, he thought, because chats moved so quickly that meaningful questions could easily get buried. In 2019, he tried hosting a Twitch stream where he answered questions about the Bible, recommended sources from other ministries, but said he soon felt compelled to do more. He said, I felt God kind of poking me, saying, take your ministry further, go back to where you came from and minister to people in that field, and so I did.
In April 2020, Hennig became Dr. Witnesser. Influenced by Dr. Disrespect, a well-known professional streamer, and Ray Comfort, an evangelical evangelist and minister known for his on-the-street witnessing practices, the Dr. Witnesser approach to evangelization is more direct and aggressive than that of GMA or Souza. In the streaming sessions that this journalist watched, Hennig joined a random squad of fellow Fortniters, often teens or young adults gaming with their friends. He stayed in Game Talk to talk with the players who had mics, informing them that he goes into games to talk about the gospel. Once players stated they were okay with it, he began to talk about the afterlife and God's existence, sparking conversation with questions like, are you going to heaven, or have you committed a sin? Sometimes
when games ended, he encouraged people to visit his website or look at the Bible for themselves. In multiple instances, he had theological disagreements with people with different beliefs, including people who identify as Jehovah's Witnesses or Muslims. A few players even responded with trolling, aggressive cursing, or passionate arguing, making the stream uncomfortable to watch. But in the majority of the streams that were viewed, most people seemed willing to listen, but not necessarily to agree.
Hennig's approach has occasionally gotten him in trouble. In mid-July, the Dr. Witnesser Twitch channel received a 7-day ban for targeting others with repeated or severe personal abuse. The evidence for the claim was a clip of Hennig telling a Muslim teen that he would end up in hell because he had not accepted Christ.
Shoot notes that Hennig's approach is confrontational and often resembles the culture war narrative that evangelical leaders like Franklin Graham tend to offer to their followers. I think a lot of people would follow someone like Dr. Witnesser because he's comfort food. He reaffirms the beliefs that they have about the us versus them narrative.
But Hennig claims the people he talks to do not seem to mind what he's doing. He says, I'm just surprised by the massive amount of kids and adults who respond. They're just like, yeah, I want to hear about this. They're surprisingly thirsty, I don't like that he used that word, to hear about what the Bible says about the afterlife and what you know when you die. He says he has also received several follow-up DMs about personal and theological issues, like whether marijuana is prohibited by scripture and whether sleeping with a girlfriend is acceptable.
Still, to Hennig, Twitch is ultimately just a tool. He says, the only reason I'm playing is to really, really take the gospel to gamers. If there were no game, I would just be door knocking.
So, okay, I don't have my gun mug because I'm at a different location, so here's obvious.
Yeah.
I would say my first main problem with this, not even to do with religion, is this seems like self-promo. This is like self-promotion. This is like if I go into a game and I'm like, yo, everyone go follow my Twitch stream. It's like a faux pas. Like, it's not something you really do online. And I feel like going into, if I went into a Fortnite game and someone was, I see this as trying to sell me something. They're trying to sell me their religion. And if I was just playing a Fortnite game and someone's like, yo, join my church, I'd be like, nah, bro, I'm just here to grind XP in Fortnite. I don't think this is the place to do this personally. But
yeah.
I feel like this person is on Twitch just because Twitch has an audience. They're like, oh, there's people that might listen to me. That's where I'm going to go. They don't care about Twitch. They don't care about gaming. They don't care about the community. Yeah. They just care about, it seems like they're just there for their own game.
I mean, they created a caricature that sounds like someone who's from the Westboro Baptist Church when I think of someone like Dr. Witnesser, who's, I'm just going to jump into these lobbies and basically engage in this conversation without really any, preface to do so. Just that's what it's going to be when I do that. Someone like that, to me, especially saying what he said to the Muslim person, it really upset me to hear that. I mean, to tell someone you're going to go to hell if you don't change your beliefs, and then to be like, oh, I'm doing the work of an all-loving being. I'm like, but you're not. And in fact, that's a complete contradiction to what it is that you are claiming to be. I think, there's a lot of people, I want to choose my words. Yeah. There's a lot of people conditioned to think a certain thing and to believe a certain way, and it ultimately affects every choice and decision that they make. And these individuals that are approaching this as if there is some count that they need to achieve in order to achieve this outcome to the way they've been taught is the outcome of what happens when we die, is just so odd. For really, when you sum it all up, is how do you love your neighbor as you love yourself?
Right.
And that doesn't feel like that's what it is here. I feel like this is all of, I just love myself and want to bring notoriety to myself, and it has nothing to do with the person on the other side of the headset.
I absolutely agree. I think it's very strange this person modeled themselves after Dr. Disrespect, who cheated on his wife. His crew filmed in a bathroom. You could say they were both mistakes, but he's known for being like kind of toxic and a meme. I would hope that's very far from, a church's values of being like accepting of people. I also feel like this, some of these people, they're trying to be like self-help. So like self-help, like, oh, like you don't know if this is good or bad. I will tell you, like, I will tell you if this is okay for you to do or not. And that's really having an effect on people's lives. Someone went, I think it was Supple says in my Discord, I joined the Jesus Discord. So some of the screenshots, one of the screenshots says, I genuinely believe the more we seek God in scripture, the less we will have to guess at what the Spirit is telling us. He will consistently make himself more clear. And it just, to me, maybe it's because I haven't, been involved in anything religious in a while, but it seems like kind of not extremist, but I feel like very conservative or kind of more of an orthodox, approach to religion, versus what I think I would be maybe okay with if there was just like a Christian gamer server and everyone's just nice and it's a community and maybe they all have like a Discord sermon on Sundays that you can join if you want, and it's just like a community versus just like trying to preach that you should behave and believe a certain way,
right.
Else that's wrong and else that's a sin.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I listened to some of this language that these individuals use, that this article is about and is addressing this God mode activated group. And part of me is just like, when you make the claim, I'm going to teach someone, you should be truly educated on what it is you're actually teaching. And if you call yourself a teacher and then you tell people that they should listen to you, if you have a fraud of an education, whether you know it or not, you are misleading people. And ultimately, all I can feel in moments like this when I see this type of stuff is I think there's a lot of unfortunate misleading and deception. And it may not be intentional. It may be coming from a good place where these people's hearts truly believe it to this extent. But I just find it so, I don't know, I just find it so interesting how a text from thousands of years ago, so people can take the perspective, oh, I know what this thing says, and they have no education on the actual history and the people in which the text came from. It's like me saying I understand game developing, and I've never read a book about game developing. I have no idea what coding actually is. I don't know any of that information that surrounds it. And yet I walk around and claim I know what it is to be a game developer. And it's just like, what? No, you can't go around telling people that. You have no history. And if you were to then be like, come listen to Chris Marrone's teachings on how to be a game developer, other game developers who are truly educated on the subject matter would stop by and say, can you source your education, please? Because I'm hearing you say some stuff that doesn't line up with the actual textbook information you should have and know from this information you claim to actually be a teacher of.
Right? It's like, is this person even qualified, or are they like revered in like the Christian community? What is their standing? What is their background? That's such a great point. Another problem, another one of the many problems I have with this is that it seems like they're trying to be as broadly inclusive as possible, and they're not talking about hot button issues. But I think that's really important if you're inviting people to a religion, and then you try to have them to stick around, and then suddenly you're like, oh, actually, like we're pro-life, we're anti-choice here, and you're like, oh, I feel like that's something you maybe should have said from the beginning. I think avoiding the hot button issues also is so like counterintuitive to, I think religion is supposed to help you with hot button issues, what you think about that and give you a moral code, for things. And I just feel like this is just like a very strange catch-all way to try to, it's like recruitment. This is like a recruitment scheme is what it feels like more than anything. And it's very,
I think, of course, you would say like it's international, like there's people from all over, but this is a very Western way of thinking. And that's just another aspect here is, and it's just another point real quick to make is like, this is an interpretation, a Western viewpoint on an Eastern text that takes place, with Middle Eastern individuals that had the perspective they did based on the environment that shaped them and the experiences that they have. And we insert our Western way of thinking into it, and it doesn't line up whatsoever. And you have stuff like this that I feel like it comes from a good place, but it's just, it's doing more harm than it is good. It really is.
I feel like I'm probably going to end up joining this Discord server later. Some of the channels are the tough topics, Bible questions, prayer and praise, church and resources, scripture testimony, Bible study, prayer room number 1. I don't want to enter it as a troll to be like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, this is awful kind of thing. But to just be like, what is happening in here?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Because I am so curious, and I would hate to see this kind of be like maybe like a rabbit hole for some people just looking for a community, and then it ends up being, not what they initially signed up for. I am very wary of this whole group. I'm very wary of, their goals, what they're actually trying to achieve here. I feel like I'll probably end up joining their Discord and report back to all of you.
I am curious to hear that as well. I feel like if I join that, I won't be able to be quiet, and I'll start to cause.
God.
I'll start to cause.
I'll
start to cause some problems because I will be directly coming from a place of I don't know. I would be doing.
Skepticism.
I would be doing the very thing that the text shows people were doing during the time period in which the religious leaders of their time were being called out by the very vessels of the information that we're supposed to be living by, calling them out because they were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. So I just, part of me is like, maybe I don't want to insert myself into that Discord.
Be so hard. I guess my last criticism that I'll touch on, because I could talk about this for hours. I don't like the name. God mode activated makes it sound like
it's a cheat.
Or God.
Isn't God mode cheating?
Yeah, isn't God mode like being a cheat?
It's an odd. It's an odd choice. It's an odd choice of words. Yes.
Isn't it supposed to be about like being humble and being like
selfless?
Be, like humble and selfless.
Yeah.
Like God, you don't have God mode activated. That's cheating.
Yeah. It's a odd. I think they were like GMA. They were looking for something, but somebody was like God mode. Oh, that's great. That really speaks to it. And it's just, again, choices like that don't get fully thought out, that just get made because they think it's cool and it gives them this kind of representation. It unfortunately misleads people. I had a perspective that I had. I feel I have a fuller understanding of the perspective I once had in a different direction, that when I see some of this stuff, I'm kind of like, younger me would have probably fed into this, whereas now older me with a different understanding doesn't, and there's a reason why, because I feel like it can be misleading.
I said that was the last criticism I was going to say, but I have one more. Please, can this person never say thirsty for Bible readings ever again? I don't think they know what thirsty means. I feel like this just shows they're out of touch with internet culture. Do not say thirsty for the Bible, unless maybe that's the kind of church you're running where people, I don't know, maybe that might be cool in some denominations, but I'm going to assume that's not what they meant.
I hear that. Well, this is really interesting because the very next article we have slotted, and to find this in one episode, to go from the religious topic is to politics, as Nintendo has asked other individuals to keep politics out of Animal Crossing.
So we know that Animal Crossing New Horizons launched in March, and since then brands have jumped into the cozy virtual world to do everything from releasing streetwear like 100 Thieves had custom things to organizing voters. There was a Biden-Harris Island. So now Nintendo has decided to implement some rules that restrict some of what companies can do in the game. This includes keeping things family-friendly, not using Animal Crossing as a marketing tool, and most notably keeping politics out of the game.
So this is what was said by Nintendo. While our services and products are generally for personal use only, we do understand there may be situations in which businesses and organizations would like to use or reference the game in relation to their business. As such, we would like to share a few guidelines with those businesses, organizations, and anyone representing them to preserve the experience for the millions of people enjoying the game recreationally.
Many of the rules are to be expected. Animal Crossing is an E-rated game, so it makes sense that Nintendo would ban content that would be considered vulgar, discriminatory, or offensive. Similarly, the company says that you are not allowed to obtain any financial benefit from using the game, including selling your custom design or earning any advertising revenue with the game content, which is pretty typical with how Nintendo operates.
The most surprising restriction, though, is when Nintendo says to please also refrain from bringing politics into the game. This would presumably include things like the elaborate virtual headquarters made by the Joe Biden campaign ahead of this year's U.S. presidential election. And Nintendo says the only way to get around these rules is with the separate and express written permission of Nintendo.
Nintendo says if we see your activity is not following these guidelines or is damaging or having bad influence on the community, we may ask you to stop such activity or usage of our contents and take appropriate actions, including prohibiting your future business usage of the game, Nintendo says. Future political campaigns might have to stick with Among Us.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, if that's their choice, and your game is supposed to be this like sandbox experience of like you know this is your choice. You invite people. It's not like they're barging into other Animal Crossing islands and like putting up all this Biden Harris content inside the other people's. They're like, hey, here's our place, and here's how you can come and check it out. How I don't. This is hard for me to process, and I feel like it's a slippery slope because they do a blanket statement of organizations and members who represent those organizations. I feel a little odd about this.
Same. I feel like this is also a little different from, for example, in MapleStory 2, there's, it's an MMO, there's common areas, and you can actually, put images up on billboards. I feel like if maybe putting Biden Harris in that billboard, I could see how maybe they want, to refrain from that. But you're right. This is like their own island, and they give out the code. Like, you don't have to visit it. You don't have to see it. You don't have to have any, participation with that. I don't know if maybe they just want this to be a catch-all thing. Like, I could see maybe, don't have like a neo-Nazi island, or like if there is a Proud Boys island, like maybe shut that down. Right. But it's also like, where is the line?
Where's the line?
Like is this group, if I don't know, it's just like a gathering place. I feel like it just it's strange how this is kind of turned into not to equate this to Reddit, but it's like these are gathering hubs for social groups, and there is a bit of a responsibility on the company to kind of police that. But also, I don't think that having a Biden Harris Island was like doing any harm to Animal Crossing or Nintendo.
I couldn't agree more. Aludrin says something that I thought was really interesting. Is like when they use a language like business and referring to business, and you're like, but streamers, wouldn't they technically be included? This is a business for them. They do play your game. So are we now going to start saying that you have the right to regulate what it is to the extent in which that streamer can now do with your game? Again, this is a very slippery slope of commentary that I think should have been directly addressed at who they wanted to directly address it at, versus kind of making these broad strokes of something that could become, down the road, people feel oppressed that they can't use certain games because Nintendo says, hey, you're pushing information that we don't believe you should push.
Right, I agree, and I've seen some mixed things about like, does this affect streamers? Because Nintendo's like, you can't use Animal Crossing to make money. But if I make a YouTube video and I make money off that YouTube video, then that's technically against the rules. And a lot of people are like, we don't think Nintendo will take action. Yeah, we also thought that the music industry wasn't going to shut down all these streamers from playing music on their streams. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, well, technically it's not allowed, but you can do it because no one cares. And now people are really, really, feeling the heat from that decision. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, you can just, make money off Animal Crossing at your own risk. I think this needs to be a lot more specific, hopefully to protect creators, because I feel like a big part of why Animal Crossing got so popular is because of creators, or because a lot of artists, making like Demon Slayer outfits, 100%. In Animal Crossing, and sharing that content, like this benefits Animal Crossing. I agree that it's, there's the risk of a slippery slope of like how much, or do they just pick and choose, what they want to shut down whenever they want, and who cares what the consequences are for the creators?
Yep. That's where it's now. It's like, you guys going to get a little bit more specific. Are we now going to start to see this information? Where does this proceed from? It's a great point on the music industry, because look where we're at now. Yeah, some people they'll turn a blind eye to it, and then once it's on their doorstep and then it's actually affecting their lives, then they have something to say. But now is the time to speak out against this if you find disagreement with this, because they just have come out and made this statement. So this is where the pushback is needed if you do believe there should be a pushback.
I agree, and I think they said this statement to protect themselves, to be like, you can't do anything we don't like, but everyone else is like, okay, should I just not play your game then? Because this makes me like, I don't think Nintendo's gonna come after me, but this does make me like kind of concerned, if this is just gonna come back to bite me. And I feel like organizations just probably won't use maybe Animal Crossing as a medium anymore, or if they do, it's kind of like you're just running that risk, and you have to decide if that's actually going to be worth it or not.
Yeah. Well, what was not worth it was the fact that a Twitch ban was hit during Twitch Rivals to XQC.
And if anyone has seen a tweet, there was a tweet from XQC that's been circulating that's like, why would anyone ever cheat in a video game? That's totally not worth it. And everyone's like, this aged poorly. So XQC, former pro Overwatch player, currently one of the top streamers on Twitch, has been temporarily banned for cheating at Twitch Rivals, which is a Twitch official event, which is a sponsored tournament series. XQC was playing this summer's breakout smash hit Fall Guys when he stream sniped an opponent live on air and sent them home early.
So XQC also forfeit the prize money and has been banned from appearing in a Twitch Rivals event for 6 months. Twitch Rivals tweeted, "At GlitchCon, our player conduct rules were violated. We require all participants to abide by the same rules in order to play in a tournament. As a result, XQC has been issued a temporary Twitch account suspension, a temporary Twitch Rivals ban, and has forfeited associated prize money."
XQC posted a tweet a few days ago addressing the issue and said, "Stop defending me everywhere for no reason. We got into the final game with Dr. Lupo and Shroud's team. We shouldn't have done it, and it was wrong. I'm sorry for my actions. I thought it would be funny. It did not change the outcome, but it was still malicious. Sorry."
And the latest suspension is the third time this year he's been kicked off of Twitch temporarily. The first was in February when he played an explicit version of Connect 4 on stream and a CG opponent took her clothes off. The second was after he showed 2 gorillas having sex by accident, in his words. And before that, while he was playing Overwatch professionally, he was no stranger to controversy.
I did not know those were the reasons for his other bans. That is wild. So the reason all of this matters is because XQC is one of the biggest streamers on Twitch, period. He has 4.1 million Twitch followers and averages anywhere between 40,000 and 60,000 concurrent viewers in an average stream. Twitch has historically come under fire for not taking action against its largest channels, so his suspension is, quite a big deal. Mm-hmm. He's the biggest partner to be kicked off the site since Dr. Disrespect's sudden but perma ban.
Yeah, I'm again. Why this person even risked this? I don't understand. Like, this just seems like it was a really bad idea. But also, it's kind of like, is that part of the I don't know, the ego, audacity to think you could do something like this and get away with it?
Yeah, and I feel like there's so many big name streamers that have been banned so many times, and it kind of even feeds their notoriety. Because if, let's say, he showed this game where this woman takes off her clothes on stream, that's gonna be clips, that's gonna be shared, that's gonna be the hot talk of the internet, and the ban, everyone's gonna be like, haha, that's so funny, he was banned, now he's back, and I feel like doing ban-worthy things or cringe-worthy things or these really inflammatory things are often how some people get really viral and really famous. And I think this is just encouraging that. And I mean, I don't personally, I guess, really have an opinion on if XQC should be perma-banned or not, but I do think that Twitch issuing some of these bans just kind of adds fuel to the fire of this is how you make content.
100%. Hey, I love how Kai shows up and is like, black coffee from Marrone. You're right. It is black coffee. Cheers to you, Kai, coming in with the guests right off the rip. I love it. I think, I agree, because when you look at some of these individuals that they get their recognition, they make these decisions that would otherwise be a parallel to like watching a train crash, where, it's that jolt that you're now paying attention to, more often, because you'll always remember the initial train crash.
Right. And I feel like there's just so many big streamers, like even like Tyler One was banned from League of Legends and they unbanned him because he was just so viral and such an important person. They were just like, oh, I guess we can invite you to like an official event. So I guess I'm at least glad that they suspended him for this, because even though it might have been a funny moment to stream snipe in this tournament that was cheating, so he did violate the rules. So I'm glad that they kind of stuck to their guns there. But I feel like XQC's return is going to be probably one of the biggest concurrent count streams on Twitch. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if XQC comes back, after 6 months, and it's like, oh, like, this is my comeback stream, and gets like 500,000 people watching. Maybe this is actually a good thing for him, which is not good.
It promotes that behavior.
The rules, yes, it promotes that behavior.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We're going to be paying attention to more on this when that return occurs, and to see how welcome he is. Aldurin, thank you so much for subscribing to us, especially with your Prime. We really, really appreciate that. Welcome to the DGN family. Our next story is one we've been talking about, and it is a more positive one.
Yes.
Because it looks like, and I want to believe this is true, as we've discussed so much about the Xbox Games Pass, CEO Jim Ryan, that is the CEO of PlayStation, has teased the PlayStation 5 Game Pass.
It looks like PlayStation owners might be looking forward to a Game Pass-like service for the PS5 after all, if recent comments by the CEO Jim Ryan are to be believed.
So there was, in an interview with TASS, a Russian outlet, TASS, about the PlayStation 5, and Ryan discussed PlayStation's competition with Microsoft in that persistent console war, which he stated is a term he does not like to use.
Ryan says, "For me, it's great that there's competition. I think it makes us work harder. It avoids us getting complacent. It's great that the consumer has a choice. I think that's wonderful."
Says that the TASS inquired directly about the Xbox Games Pass and whether Sony has any sort of answer to the service on its own. And Ryan has some interesting insights to share on that end.
He says, "There is actually news to come, but just not today. We have PlayStation Now, which is our subscription service, and that is available in a number of markets. So PlayStation Now isn't exactly the same as Game Pass, but Ryan likely mentioned it as an alternative to what PlayStation currently offers."
And these are very interesting comments as well, considering previously Sony had called a Game Pass-like idea, quote, unsustainable, referring to its library of first-party titles, too clean and pure to otherwise exist on a subscription service like Game Pass.
It should be interesting to see what news Ryan is actually referring to as it comes down the pipeline at a later date. Right now, PlayStation fans will have to be content with the PlayStation Now titles or the PlayStation Plus collection, which is similar in that it lets players access a curated selection of games for free, along with our paid PlayStation Plus subscriptions.
If there is a Game Pass analog in the future, it will likely have different parameters, but a full-on competitor would be something. And I do think with the success of Microsoft's Game Pass and recognizing they will put these too clean, too pure first-party titles right on their Games Pass, Sony has to come up with a solution to compete.
I think they do, because, right now on my stream, I have a donut goal to pay for the cost of Bug Snacks. I do want to play Godfall, even though the reviews weren't that great. I think Demon Souls and Cyberpunk, and it's $210 to play those 4 games, which is a lot of money, and I'm like, well, that's probably way more than the cost of a Game Pass. And so some of these games aren't initially out on Game Pass. I feel like most of these games you do have to pay for upfront, but I hope that maybe as Game Pass grows, we're going to see more of these big titles on there, because I would much, much rather pay a subscription, than $210 in games that I'm going to love, but only play once. And then, there's my money gone.
Exactly. And that's another thing to take into account here is when we know a game like Cyberpunk 2077, which we are all extremely hyped for and cannot wait to play, has been said it will eventually be available on Game Pass. Sony has to figure out a way to, compete with that, because you're talking about a game that's going to be offered on your system and it's going to come with a lot of cool features. But if I truly want to save myself some money because there are all these other games coming out along with Cyberpunk that I'd like to play, I'm just going to go over to Microsoft's Game Pass, because then I'll have access to it while having access to all these other amazing titles.
Right, totally. There are so many good titles coming out. If anyone hasn't voted in the Game Awards, I started voting on
nice.
Some of the games there. But it's just, games are so expensive, and I do think that PlayStation, I don't know if they need an equivalent to Game Pass because they still have their exclusives. But I think that, they're not going to make as much money as they could, if they did have, something more akin to Game Pass. I think with their collection, there's a lot of their, great games that you can play on there, but it's still not quite the same thing. The collection isn't as extensive or expansive. I know Microsoft owns a lot of studios, which is part of why they can have such a big collection on their Game Pass. But I think PlayStation will probably have something to... I think they do need, an option, to compete with that.
That's why I am curious to see when this announcement comes out, how far and to what extent they're going to do. If they come out the gate strong, like we have our direct competitor to Games Pass, or are they going to take the approach that Microsoft did early on, where before the Games Pass has actually hit the level that it has, it was sort of like Netflix in that way, like they had some major titles on there. It wasn't many, but most of the games were ones they were part of the, indie developer, scene, or just were some of the smaller studios that are kind of budding to eventually be one day like AAA studios. So I think there's a lot to be said for the acknowledgement and the good questioning by this interviewer of where are you guys going to go with, something to compete with that? Because as much as he goes, I don't want to say that there's a console war. Well, there's clearly a consumer war because Microsoft is going above and beyond with its way of enticing more consumers to their side of things than Sony is right now.
I like how you pulled Netflix in because I know that the Game Pass has tried to be the Netflix of games, but I hadn't thought about the fact that when Netflix started out, there were some like weird selections on there. Like a lot of people were like, oh, like Netflix has a lot of like weird random stuff, but they do have a lot of hits, and as they grew and as they have more, like Netflix originals or big shows, now it's kind of like you have to have Netflix, or if you don't, find someone who can give you their login, because it's so good. I could see that happening, with the Game Pass, maybe right now, it's pretty good, but it's not like crazy amazing, versus maybe in the future it's going to be like, hey, you kind of need to have a Game Pass.
And knowing like the xCloud, the cloud-based gaming is going to be where we start to see more of an interest, especially as our internet infrastructure builds and the technology in our pockets with our phones and our mobile devices, that is going to bolster even more interest, where it's like, where can I get the best gaming experience possible? Right now, if we were to like put it all on paper, if you want just hands down the best gaming experience that you can and the most affordable one, which would make it the best, you would say the Xbox has that. They're in front on that race.
And speaking of cloud gaming, I got an email that was like, you can sign up for Amazon Luna. And so I went to be like, okay, yeah, let me activate my trial. And it was like, oh, there's an error. You can't activate it. And I'm like, Jesus, like, why is this so hard? Stadia was so hard to sign up for. I don't know why Luna is so hard to sign up for. And it's also only a week of free trial. And then I'll have to pay like $6 a month, I think. And it's like, personally for me, I don't think a week is enough. I think like a month of a free trial might be, good for me to try out Luna. Personally, a week is pretty short. Maybe free trial wise, that's normal. But I don't know, I guess for gaming stuff, I don't think that's very long.
I don't think so either.
You get a controller, and I'm like, do I want a controller? Do I have to pay for the controller? Do I have to?
Was that part of the 6 weeks?
Right? Is this part
of the $6?
I don't know. I feel like they could have just made it in a neat little package. I don't know why they're not promoting it on Twitch. I feel like they could easily just like buy up some ad space and have that have synergy. But it seems like Luna's kind of weird. For my first impression.
For sure. I mean, that speaks volumes to xCloud. They're doing very well with that. People who are playing it are having a good time. It seems like there's going to have to be, I think what we are seeing is already with Epic as an example of modeling yourself after to see a success not be backed by who owns you, but what you do on your own to then eventually reach that status. I think there's an example already being set that a person like Jim Ryan, maybe he doesn't want to publicly say, praise be to Microsoft for what they've done so well that we yet have not been able to do. But we got to give credit where credit is due, and I would like to believe that they've done this so successfully that we will have that PlayStation Games Pass, and we will have those other ones especially within cloud gaming, to pop up in the future because the bar has been set.
It has, and my one reservation is that I hope you don't see what's happened kind of with streaming and cable, where cable was expensive, so it was kind of like you can pick and choose what streaming platforms you want, but now you have to subscribe to so many different, like Netflix, Hulu, whatever, that ends up adding up and being really expensive. So I would hate to see, having to pay for, Game Pass and PlayStation, and if Nintendo has something, XYZ, and that adds up. But I don't think we are anywhere close to that, since this is super new. I feel like this is still kind of like a fledgling thing that's, trying to really, sink its roots in.
Yeah, we're still in that little, that excitement of something new and awesome, and can't wait to sink our teeth into it. And then you're like, how far do I sink my teeth into it until it possibly becomes something I don't want to be consuming anymore? Yeah, I hear that. But it's exciting. I'm hopeful this is true. We are at the end of the Daily Gaming News Hour. We did have a story we were going to share, which was Games Radar's preview of 16 hours in Cyberpunk. We'll push that to next week. It's a really exciting read. It's another one of those reminders of how bad I want to be playing the game. So look forward to talking to you all about that on Tuesday.
We will be seeing you all Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time for another show. Thank you so much for joining us. My drink today was sparkling water with blood orange flavor.
Yeah.
I was not guessed today.
I got to go get some more like drinks and beverages. I'm just like tapping the well of water and coffee, and Kai's on to me, so I gotta figure out something to throw off the scent.
But we will be showing our reruns right after the show. And again, we are live from Tuesday through Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. We could not do this without you.
Thank you all to the likes, the subscriptions, the new subscribers, the individuals watching our YouTube, our VODs. Thank you all so much for being a part of this journey with us. We love it. And we love to be here with you talking about everything going on in the gaming industry.
But for Daily Gaming News on November 20th, I am Kaisa.
I am Roan. We will see you all next Tuesday. Enjoy your weekend. Later, everybody.
See ya.